Welcome to the first Pink Talented Angels virtual cocktail hour. The board and I wanted to be able to communicate with each of our PTA members, our Pink Talented Angel members, and to be able to continue the conversation around crisis management. The conversation tonight is going to be how to manage your business in a crisis. And we will break down through three different speakers our take on the current situation. We'll talk a little bit about tips. We're going to be very general in the conversation that we have. And then we're going to do Q&A after. So please plan on writing down your questions if you have any and send them over, and Danielle will run the Q&A. So I'd like to first just introduce Pink Talented Angels. I know everybody that is on the call is familiar with us, but we are in our second year. We are a leading women's organization built on mentorship and the pursuit of opportunity. Pink Talented Angels started last year, and it's kind of funny how it started. It started in my living room with a lot of my associates and colleagues that I work with, and I thought to myself, why am I not bringing together the women that have been there, done that, and the women that want to build a business, sell it, and grow within the female business world? And that's kind of how Pink Talented Angels come together. We are an organization that mentors, has guidance, resources, and also we are an organization that supports and is creating an ecosystem for women, supporting women. So we have four, including myself, on the call today. You all know who I am, but I'll just give a brief overview. My name's Lizanne Falsetto. I was the CEO and founder of Think Thin. I am the CEO of Pink Talented Angels. I have two beautiful children. I'm currently up at my ranch in Ojai, and unfortunately, my technology from the rain and the storms has been a little bit crazy. So if I go off on Wi-Fi, one of the other speakers will come online, but just wanted to welcome you. I'd like to introduce Annette Davidson. Annette is a board member at PTA. She is also a product development and supply chain guru. Annette and I go back many years. Annette sat in the chair at Trader Joe's as one of the first buyers that really grew the category of not just nutrition bars, but many other categories. But what Annette did in the nutrition bar category was pretty incredible. And she gave me my first break from female to female. And back then in that day, it was quite a man's world. And when Annette saw the product and talked to me, she gave me my biggest first retail chain, and Trader Joe's was an incredible client for Think Thin. Annette has worked in retail distribution and manufacturing over her career. Her sweet spot is experienced in problem solving, which is what we have today, is how are we dealing with the crisis that we have in the world today with the coronavirus. I'd like to introduce Tania Konishi. Tania is somebody that I've worked with for many years, over 10 years. She was my VP of marketing at Think Thin. And Tania was probably one of the most important people in my career to help me communicate what I wanted to say about Think Thin. I had it in my head and I had it in my heart, but I couldn't get it out into the marketing world. And what Tania does really well is that she helps entrepreneurs be able to communicate what their brand is about. And she's a good Irish woman, and it's great to have her here. Her sweet spot is emotional connection and to work business owners. So welcome, Tania. I'd like to introduce Austin DeVell. Austin is a financial service wealth manager. He is sponsors for Pink Talented Angels, UBS. He has been named by Forbes magazine as one of the Americans' top next generation wealth advisors, which is a really great compliment. And Austin is bringing to the table for Pink Talented Angels with UBS the financial support through the year to be able to help the entrepreneur understand the business and the life portion of their financial portfolio. So it's a very important part of how you think about growing your business and your financial wealth. So I'd like to welcome all of them. So I'd like to first say that in today's world right now, it's scary. And I've gone through two crises in my life in 2004 and 2008. In 2004, it was the low carb crash that I almost lost my business. And in 2008 was the recession. And what I learned from this very scary time in the chair as a young female entrepreneur was I learned that there were two types of entrepreneurs. There is the head down entrepreneur where you're marching through the tasks. And then there's the head up strategic entrepreneur where you're looking ahead 1, 3, 6 years. And I think through this crisis of 2004 and 8, I became more strategic in the way that I looked at my business. And the goals that we have of this 4 series of 1 of 4 that we're going to deliver in the next month is tips to become a strategic entrepreneur. There is opportunity today in the world of crisis. What I realized when I went through 2 major crises in my life and career was that when I kept my eyes open for opportunity, it was there. And so I just want to encourage everybody on the call to know that there's opportunity here to become strategic in the way you run your business and to understand the opportunity gaps that you might not have seen before a crisis has come upon you. So I believe there's 4 critical steps that come into a conversation in a crisis. As a leader, people are looking up to you. They want to hear from you. Communication is key. I truly believe in 2004 that because of my relationship with my buyers, vendors, and manufacturers, I was able to pick the phone up and communicate with everybody to the point where I actually asked for extended time. I asked for receivables and my payments to be pushed out. Communication is key, and we'll talk a little more about that. Also, planning. What's your plan? Do you have a plan? What is that plan? We'll talk about that. To act decisively. So this is where I say check at your data, but don't get overwhelmed by it. Really be able to make decisions quickly. Without acting quickly, time goes by. So it's important to act decisively and repeat. Start it all over again. So every day that you sit in your chair, you want to think about communication, how to get the vendors and manufacturers, and a little bit about communication here. You know, as the CEO and founder, voice to voice is invaluable. Right now, in the current situation, the more that you reach out and communicate, the more that you'll be in front of it instead of behind it. Your customer relations are crucial. Create an outbreak response plan. What is that plan? Bring your people together and have a response plan. One of the things that I did in 2004 is I actually appointed my CFO as second in command to make decisions. If I was overwhelmed in one corner, I made sure there was somebody that was aligned with my mission, aligned with my response plan, and they were able to make decisions. You don't want to waste time. We are changing like this every minute in this current situation. Who's responsible for coordinating efforts and communication with employees? It really is you. A lot of us at the point in our career didn't have a human resource director. Communication with your employees is extremely important, and also involving your employees, delegating. When you put trust in them, it will pay off. It will pay off not just now in the crisis, but in the future as we come out of this and we start seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Your employees will be there for you. Some trust and delegate to your employees. Review your HR policies and practices, go through them, make sure that the laws apply, make sure that your telecommuting policies are in place, and that your policies within the employees are in place. Take time to really just make sure that that is succinct and tight. Circulate your policies to your employees. You know, when I went through the crisis, we had coffee every morning together. And what we did in 2004 was we reviewed our goals, we looked at what the plan was, and we in charge of what, and we executed. Very important to stick to your plan, but know that as crisis comes into play, things change. So be adverse to making quick decisions to change. Again, reach out to your consumers directly, stay in contact, let them know you're there for them. And the other thing that I think is really important is that it's okay to ask for favors. It's okay to ask for anything right now. Extended terms, talking about inventory control with what you have in your inventory levels, shipping what you feel you need to ship depending on where you're at. Communicate with your buyers and ask for what you need. They can only say no. It's important to ask now, and if they say no, then to figure out the next plan from there. But I buyer for support. I went to my bank. I asked my bank for relief. It's time now to communicate and ask for what your needs are. So act now. So work from facts and not rumors, right? At the moment, things are ever evolving, and we're, in the health food business and the food business. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs on the phone that are from many different businesses, but the bottom line is that the information that you have in your business should be accurate and should be a fact. Don't work from an assumption that it's a rumor. Important. Communicate with your stockholders, your investors. Lean on them. Lean on them for your support. Even your board members can help you. Have evening calls with them. Really important to communicate, to ask, and to lean on them. To protect your employees and the shareholders, adopt practice of constant communication, which is what we said. Constant communication is key. Have a number 2 in line, which I talked about with my CFO. I think the most important thing that I learned is that the presence of the leader is crucially important to the calm of the business. Being present, being solid, not panicking, being clear with your direction. The employees look up to you. It's just like our children look up to us every day during this crisis. Are we going to be okay? Same thing. So be present and stand in your power. Err on the side of caution. So this is an important one because, I say to myself, if something is 50-50 and the decision in my head is 50-50, I would lean towards not making that decision. If the decision is more in the favor of a positive in a crisis situation, you want to lean into it. If it is more of a negative, you want to stay away from it. And the next thing is just be open. Be open. Be able, have your door open in your office. Don't shut your door. Keep your door open. Let employees come and go. Make sure that you're open and you have full communication with them. So these are just a few things that I put together. You know, this was kind of difficult for me, to be honest. And I think one of the reasons is because it took me back to the 20 years of building Think Thin and looking at, you know, this whole conversation in my head of, oh my goodness, am I going to lose my business? How am I going to pay my bills? What am I going to do? How am I going to manage it? And you almost come into a warrior mode where you say, you know what? I'm going to survive. I'm going to plow through this. And so these are some interesting points that I pulled from some other people as well as mine that I think are really important. So from my perspective, and this is my personal perspective of running a business, I believe that we are in a recession in the next 2 years and that we are going to have difficult times moving forward in the next 6 months. So what is king in this situation? It's cash. Cash is king. I think you should have 6 months of cash available at all times right now. So how do you get that in the current situation? You can think about drawing down your credit. You can think about taking out cash from your credit cards and putting cash in a bank. It is very important to review your payables, your receivables, to make sure that you're able to collect your cash and to hold cash for 6 months. So I highly recommend 6 months of cash moving forward is crucial. Lead, don't panic, steady at the wheel. We all know that everybody's looking up at us as leaders. So how do we stay very focused? There's opportunity and adversity, as you know. There's opportunity right now. So every day that I walked into the office, when I was sick to my stomach and didn't sleep, I said to myself, Lizanne, open your eyes and look for the opportunity. Look for the white space that you didn't see before because you were so busy trying to build the business. A crisis situation opens up opportunity gaps. So look for those. Focus on what you can control. Don't focus on what you can't control. Stay in your power and focus on what you can control. And that means the facts in front of you, the plan that you have. So this is a hard one. And I know this might sound harsh, but I can be, pretty honest that when I went through the 2004 low carb collapse, I had 32 employees and I immediately cut 15 employees. I had to survive. It's very important to make a decision and to cut where you need to cut, and not just with the employees, because it's a tough time right now. And I know we all have a heart, but look at where you can cut lean and think about how to do that and execute it quickly and with consideration of the person or the client or who you're dealing with, but really be purposeful on the way that you do it and really look at the budget and start looking at how you can lean down now. Stay close to your key relationships. We talked about that a bit, about the one-on-one communication with your buyers. I know with Annette, when we went through the crisis together of low carb, I was on the phone with her every day, talking to her every day, letting her know that I can't produce or that this order is going to be slow or that shipping was not good. But I communicated it and I made sure she knew. When you communicate up front, it helps the person in the chair to manage their desk moving forward. Don't feel like you have to hide it. Remember, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Make deals, move quick, smart, and explain your steps. So what I mean by that is, if you think about your employees, you want to stick to the plan. If you change a bit of the plan because you have to, make sure that everybody is aware of that. So the steps that you take, you're communicating those steps, and everybody is on the same team moving forward with your goal. I think that's really important. One of the things in 2004 is I didn't cut marketing. So right now, when we say cut, be lean, keep everything down, keep cash in the bank, the one thing about marketing that's really interesting is that when people go quiet, there's opportunity to talk loud about your brand. Find the opportunity in the marketing space. Tania will speak a little bit more about that, but I invested more money in marketing in the downfall of when I had to let employees go, I had to cut down, I had to move back from Nevada. I invested more in marketing, and in the end game, it paid off for my brand. Don't risk over 51%, which is what I talked about a little bit about that risk, right? Where's your risk way positive to negative? So the question that I really would love for you to do is print this out and put it above your desk. Where is my opportunity? Where is opportunity right now for me to take advantage of my competitor? Where is there opportunity when people are pulling out of the marketing and I have opportunity to take that spot? Where is the opportunity within the inventory control you have? There's opportunity right now through loans, through bank relief. Where is your opportunity? I just encourage you to constantly think of that every day. So one of the things that got me in big trouble in 2008 was that I didn't have interruption insurance. And I learned very quickly that's a very important part of a business. So, I highly recommend that if you don't have it now, that you look into securing your interruption insurance. I was able to piggyback off of my manufacturer's insurance. It saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars. I didn't even know that I had the opportunity to do that. But when I called my insurance agent and I said, please tell me, what can I do in this situation? Again, communicate, reach out. She came back and said, well, does your manufacturer have insurance? Can you piggyback off of them? So I learned an enormous amount through the crisis, but I also was able to save an enormous amount of money by piggybacking off of the insurance of a manufacturer that was around me. So please look into your insurance. That was a very big saving moment for me. So that's just a little tip from me. I'd like to now pass it off to Annette.
Thank you, Lizanne. What I want to start talking about is inventory control. Right now, you need to really track your inventory costs, but not just your cost, but your inventory levels. It would be really prudent right this moment to find out what your levels of inventory are, not just at your store, but at your distribution. What you need to do is focus on how can I control the chargebacks I may get from a distributor or from a retailer. During crisis control, what goes in and out is really, really important to monitor. The communications, as Lizanne stated earlier, with your buyer is also very critical. And now is the time to negotiate with any supplier that you can. It would be very good to go through right now and look at all of your unique ingredients, whether it's for a health and beauty aid product, for a beverage, or for a food, or nutraceuticals. You should think about going back and renegotiating with each supplier, not just the cost of the good, but maybe extending your terms. Nobody wants you to go out of business, right? They want to keep you in business so that you continue to buy from them. So now is the time to have that conversation. And like Lizanne said, it needs to be very calm, collective conversation. And hey, what can you do to help us? What can you do to lower my COGS so I stay in business? And what can you do to negotiate my terms? There's all kinds of creative ways for terms to occur, not just 2%, 10, 30. A lot of people will go to 30, 60, or 90 days at this point just to keep you in business. I want you, when you're thinking about inventory control, I'd like you to not always assume that your buyer is correct. The reason why I say that is, especially now in this particular type of crisis, they have an ERP system, right? And that ERP system is giving them their forecast, which is what generates your purchase order. However, right now the ERP system uses a mathematical calculation called an algorithm, and that algorithm can't take into account the extraordinary events that we've just all witnessed in the last 2 weeks. The algorithm can't adjust to a completely wiped out shelf. So everything is being overridden manually. So when that occurs, it equals an increased margin for error. So I'm asking you to, when you get a purchase order, if it's an extraordinary purchase order, to think through it and maybe communicate with the buyer prior to sending it. I think Lizanne would tell you, you don't need to, especially in crisis, or probably mainly in crisis, you don't need to send an inventory, or a purchase order in full. Now, there's lots of distributors who you get graded on a regular basis, so you have to send in full. But under crisis, they may send you an order that's much larger than normal, and they don't know whether or not you're going to fulfill it. So that's when you have the conversation. This is how much I can send, and they can adjust it, and you can still remain in that scorecarding system in a positive light. The other thing to think about is your communication with your buyers. Often, I would offer them, actually right now, I would offer to help them. What can you do that would make their life easier? Right now is the time to win them over. When you get an email from them, I encourage strongly that you really stop and slow down. You need to give an immediate feedback, but you also have to make sure that you read every portion of their email and that you adequately understand it and that you answer it in full and succinctly. You have to imagine that a buyer has absolutely hundreds of people contacting them, not just you, right? So they have to be super efficient in their conversations. So make sure that you don't answer a question with an additional question, right? Answer everything they've asked you to do and try to make their life easier. And if you have the opportunity to talk to them live, like Lizanne said, it's critical timing to do that. Build the rapport. In this slide here, we're talking about inventory also during a crisis. If your goods are not the goods that are flying off the shelf in this particular crisis, now's the opportunity to really look at it and reduce your supplies. Reduce your inventory to a level that you will not have a liability in the end of this crisis. You need to reduce or review your prices as well and match that with your support, the support of your demand. So let me give you an example of that. Let's say that your goods right now are the ones that are flying off the shelf and that you can't keep up. Again, this is the prime time for you to renegotiate your either your transportation or your inventory cost, your warehousing cost, or your ingredient cost. And I would also say to you that when you're looking at your ingredients, you should have a minimum of 3 possible suppliers for every single ingredient that you have. That gives you an opportunity to be nimble in the face of a crisis. And it also gives you a better indication of what the real cost of a good is out in the industry. Review your sales forecast regularly. I know that Liz Ann would also tell you that in the face of these crises, she had to keep on the inventory. She had to not only monitor it during the crisis, but as the crisis started lifting, don't take your foot off the gas. Keep your head down on your forecast and make sure that you're staying in the pace of the crisis. I'm going to go a little bit out of order here. If you continue to invest in your flagship products, you review your product mix, but you also think about reducing the number of SKUs. So when you look at those three statements, right now, if you're having to make a choice over what you should manufacture, you should always manufacture your top selling items. The extemporaneous items you have, or the ones that sit on the fence, they don't sell all that well, this is the time for SKU rationalization. If you're able to fulfill your purchase orders and get out of those unique inventories, now's the time to do it. SKU rationalization is a really tough thing for an owner of a company because there's an emotional attachment to every SKU. This is when you really need to look at things and less with your heart and more with, do I really need this SKU? Is it driving my margin? Is it driving my business? If it's not, let it go. And then I would also say that keeping excellent records is really prudent right now, especially if you're having live conversations with buyers. The minute you get off the phone, collate what you said on an email and say, you know, as per our conversation, and here's the following. What you don't want to do is everyone's stressed right now, and you don't want to mishear something or misinterpret a directive or a request from a buyer and then go off on the wrong path. They're as stressed or more than you are. So your level-headed and focused response was so critical right now. Moving to the next slide. When you look at transportation, right now you could have a position of inadequate resources, or you could be faced with a company policy that's not fit for purpose. When it comes to transportation, if your goods are selling extraordinarily well right now, I would suggest making sure that not only do you renegotiate your ingredients and you get at least 3 people or 3 suppliers from different geographic regions and different backgrounds to help with the cost of the ingredients, you also need to look at that for your transportation. I'll give you an example. I was filling a 100-truck MVM for Costco, and the very first thing I did was pull in 5 different transportation folks and renegotiated the cost of all of that. I get that not everybody has a 100-truck MVM with Costco, which is a type of promotion. But even if it's a pallet, negotiate with multiple types of transportation, including those that you wouldn't normally think of, like UPS or FedEx. Many people think of that just for a document, but they do pallet transportation for ingredients for goods all day long. So utilize those resources as well. I want to give you an example of creating a new policy in a face of a crisis. Many times you might have to adjust your strategy, or you might have to adapt to the current environment. But just make sure that when you get out of that situation, that you create situational gratitude. All of the people that helped you in that crisis, you have to make sure that they know you couldn't have done it without them. So moving to the next slide, the portion of modifying a policy that I want you to know is I happen to be on a board for a place in Maui. We have 60 units on the property. I'm on the board that runs the revenue. We're the people who actually make sure that the units are always at maximum capacity. If you can imagine, in the last 2 weeks, not very many people are going to Maui, right? And most of the transportation is shut down, and Maui is now quarantining people. So we were faced with the loss of $282,000 worth of revenue overnight. It happened in a 4-day span. Now, normally the system would generate the money back to the client, or it would hold their deposit and it's not refundable because they didn't do it within the quote unquote 30-day policy. In a crisis like today, you have to look at the situation, identify the problem. You have to look at potential solutions, execute your plan, and then show your gratitude, right? So in this, instead of just letting the system handle the crisis of the mass cancellations, we physically got on the phone with every single guest and said, look, we're gonna give you two options. We are happy to give your money back in full, even though that's not our policy, because we understand the crisis that's happening right now. But we're also going to offer you that we keep your money, and then when you rebook in another year, then we'll give you a 20% discount for having left your money here. That is absolutely catastrophically different from our current policy, but it fits the situation perfectly. It shows gratitude, and we're building goodwill with our customers. So if you can imagine, a lot of this requires thinking outside the box. The last example, moving to the next slide. Yes. Oh, I thought were you gonna say something, Lizanne?
No.
Oh, okay. So moving to the next slide, sorry. I think that a lot of times right now, you could be faced with something unusual with your manufacturer. Let's say that you need to move your manufacturing forward. You need your goods right now faster than normal. But let's say that the manufacturer is only missing one key ingredient. It happens to be a unique ingredient that's made just for your health and beauty aid, your nutraceutical, or your food. Right now is the best time to not just partner with the buyers and all your suppliers, but show your manufacturing partner some compassion and show them that you're willing to partner with them. So if there's one ingredient that's holding you up, let's think outside the box. Can you have it overnighted? Offer to pay for that. And look at the cost of it. Ask them to chat with you about it, because most manufacturers can't just start overnighting goods whenever they feel like it. Their own margin would be really negatively affected if they did that on a regular basis. So jump in, ask what the cost is, determine if it's a good return on investment for you. Maybe you're going to take a small hit to margin, but maybe the goodwill you're going to gain with the buyer that you're fulfilling the purchase order on, that could be enough for you to make that decision. I would always say that you have to stay focused on making sure that the decision that you're making will help you in the long run, either by margin or goodwill. But execute your plan, and again, go back and show gratitude. I think that if you told a manufacturer, hey, I get you're missing an ingredient, but I'm happy to pay for the cost of overnighting it, whether it be a pallet on a truck, or let's say you need something from the East Coast, and it is by the pallet and it could go via truck. Pay to have two truckers, two drivers inside the truck. It's called team driving. And it may cost about 30% more, but if you can get your goods faster to the manufacturer and then you can get your goods out the door and to that buyer, you may have gained more than you can possibly imagine. So I'm going to pass now over to Tania.
Thank you, Annette. Lizanne, did you want to say anything in between?
I just wanted to mention about the retail side, because I think this is really important, Annette. As we look at the top SKU prioritization, and we look at, like, I'll just give an example. So my creamy peanut butter and brownie were the 2 out of the 14 flavors that were the best. In a situation where you know your top flavors are going to pull more volume, loading up on inventory, slowing down on components of the slower sales is a great way of being able to manage the process. And you, as a buyer, you were okay with knowing that a truckload of creamy peanut butter was being shipped instead of, a half a pallet or a half a truckload of lemon that didn't do well, right?
Absolutely. It's what I was saying earlier. The emotional connection needs to be put on a shelf for the moment. You really need to focus on your drivers. What's driving your business? And what those high selling items aren't just going to drive your business, they're going to drive the retailer's business too. Lizanne's really, really right. You need to focus on your heavy hitters.
And then the last thing I just want to say on that is that I realized that when I spoke to my buyers daily, a lot of my competitors were pulling out of marketing spend at retail. And when I was in communication with my buyers, they would mention that Cliff Bar pulled out of week 1 promotion. And I said, can I have that week with my top SKUs? So this is where I think opportunity, you know, that whole thing about opportunity really comes into play, and communication. So
Yes.
Thank you, Annette. That was really valuable. Great. Okay, Tania, off to you.
Okay, thank you. I love that, Annette, you just said sort of take emotion out of it. But of course, when it comes to marketing, we're all practicing social distancing right now, but this is the right place to emotionally connect.
You're right.
So, no, I'm not it's just kind of, you have to bring both. So great marketing really is about understanding the moment, the time that we're in, and communicating your relevance to it. So in many ways, we're all being redefined. Our brands are all being redefined at this time, which I find really kind of exciting. You know, I think that something that we should feel very positive about and not guilty about is looking for the white space, the unforeseen opportunity. Because frankly, this is how we will all grow out and grow on and be whole at the end of this. And whereas we want to practice great community empathy, showing vibrancy in brands is a wonderful healing and soothing thing. So I feel, I'm sure a lot of us feel as we're sort of hunkered down at home, to me, it feels very much like the shock and the lack of control that we felt after 9/11. And who would honestly see that coming out of post 9/11, there'd be a resurgence of knitting of all things, which actually launched a whole crafts movement and gave us a lot of the hipster things that are so wild today that we really take heart from. And I think the reason being is that they evoke certain things. At that time, it was sort of hearth and home, something that was literally colorful, that evoked safer times, that gave us a focus on family, and gave us something that was meditative. Knitting is very repetitive. It's sort of very soothing. And so if we are all going to look at our brands specifically in light of what we're all going through, but more in terms of its relevance to today and how we can grow out of it, it's a marvelous opportunity. So planning for post-COVID-19, be the solution for the time in which we live and show relevance, and more importantly, leadership and communicating that leadership. So we split sort of brands and their positioning into what kind of brand are you right now. Opportunities and actions will really depend on the category that you're in and what you provide. So right at the top, there'll be brands that are both relevant and needed. They have massive growth opportunities. So anybody who's in nutraceuticals right now, or boosting immune systems, or able to build medical equipment, they are busier than they've ever been. This is a time that companies who are in this place can really thrive. In fact, they're positioned to be to have new world connection in the decision path on a marketing trail, and it's the busiest time of their company history. So the only thing they can do is get in there and work. The second bucket is really those that are essential but suspended. This is most products and services that will resume with time. This is a phenomenal time for opportunity because we maybe do not have the day-to-day office situation. We're all working from Zoom. It's a time for us to look at our new selves, look at the new brand, to step back, actually, and to really look at strategy of how we're doing things, how we're communicating, who we're communicating to, drill into consumer segmentation, and really, instead of back to Lizanne talking about sort of going an entrepreneur who head down and going through things, we can be the entrepreneurs head up and looking forward. We're all going to be what is post-COVID-19. What is our brand going to be at that time? The third bucket feels panic worthy at the moment, the non-essential high touch brand that really has, on the face of it, been made irrelevant all of a sudden. You're in triage mode, which feels absolutely desperate, but you have options. You have options either to shelter in place or to retool and rethink. Could you appeal to a different audience? Could you retool from what you do with the skill set that you have to apply it to something else that's relevant right now? It's very entrepreneurial. So with this final bucket, you can either belong to the relevant and needed with great growth opportunity, or to join the essential but suspended in damage control. We put together some broad marketing tips. Reassessing your brand in the COVID-19 era is just really looking at asking the question, where is the opportunity to emerge stronger? And I really appeal to everybody to communicate definitely authentically and with brand value, but do not be afraid to be optimistic. Do not be afraid to sound positive. Do not be afraid to talk about strength and building going forward that is going to be terrific. Use that to show leadership, to communicate that there are people at the helm who are going to get through all of this. Tactically, things like evaluate your ad spend. Lizanne mentioned looking at competition, monitoring competition and what they're doing, and promotions and stepping in where others have left. Communication is key. Center your message on benefits, knowledge, and quality. And again, this knowledge is about the time in which we are. So bringing solutions all the time. Be strategic to capture and retain market share. This is a time of great fluidity. People are coming and going. And those who have the courage to come forward with not too much jargon, but enough leadership will really benefit. Monitor your competition and your peer brands' advertising and social media. So what are they doing that is grabbing attention? What are they doing that is grabbing press? What do you approve or appreciate or really respect in other brands, and how can you emulate that? Remain competitive within your category, and addition, you want to be counted alongside peer brands. So when you see somebody doing something with their employees that you admire at this moment, and the decisions that you make to either cut or not, or furlough, or give people information, or change or remodel your product so that there's a philanthropic or a community aspect or outreach to it, communicate all of this to your internal audience and your external audience. During a crisis, I also believe that marketing splits into internal and external quite differently. And the voice that normally is the same perhaps changes a little at this time. I think that's something that crisis brings, where drawing and being very clear with your employees and your colleagues as to what is going on in your mind and what kind of leadership you're bringing is crucial. Something I have to say that I have always admired in Lizanne. Consider partnerships, collabs to build community. I think there are extraordinary things going on now. I think that manufacturers are really taking lead and showing how incredible and how resilient America is, and how American brands are at this time. And building either at the local level or the national level with brands that you admire is a great opportunity to show innovation, initiative, and goodwill that ultimately will translate into brand loyalty. We're at a time, particularly with social media, where people really become brand loyal to those brands that they feel understand them, get them, speak to the same people that they do, have the same values. This will, I mean, we're thinking 6 months out, 18 months out, 2 years out. This is what we should be thinking. And this is what we should be producing strategic messaging towards, a 30, 60, 120-day time frame. Demonstrate leadership knowledge and become a resource. And this, again, for those brands that are holding in place, waiting to come back to the market resoundly. If you have not got a particularly big presence with your product right now or your service right now, it's an opportunity to say, but this is my knowledge base, or this is what I can bring. I can teach you or tell you or share with you this particular part of our knowledge or our IP. And that goes a tremendously long way to build community. You're bringing a solution. This, in times of crisis, brands that bring solutions, leaders that bring solutions, leaders that bring true leadership and communicate that in a calm, soothing voice that gives direction, that gives a positive energy, is a marvelous thing. Deliver on brand values through messaging and action. Decisions made with declared values will be, unless they're made with declared values, will be costly. We talk about opportunity, and this is marvelous. That's really what business is. Opportunistic is something entirely different and something that people get caught out on. And I think that this is a time when we're looking for human touch, human heart, and so authenticity, I believe, has never been more important. And there's plenty of opportunities to be authentic to go around. Using social media and direct response analytics to test and pivot. Now, 9/11, we really weren't at this place at all. We have an extraordinary opportunity where we can test. We can do A/B testing on social media. We can test in real time. We can pivot. We can see what works. We can respond. We can correct. We can, and there's also a lot of free tools around to stretch the budget further. We talked a little bit about collabs, but joining with a peer brand that you respect and who you can work with, particularly if they're not in the same category, so therefore not competitive, but they speak to the same audience as you do, or they build the same type of community that you have, that their values align with yours. There's a lot that can be done. Again, showing innovative leadership to come in and say, how can we build on each other's efforts at this moment and bring something that's greater than the sum of the two parts. Stress quality without appearing opportunistic. I think I mentioned that sort of out of order, but consumers want to see the world beyond this thing. It's okay to talk about it and be positive. It's okay to market the future. In fact, isn't that what we want to see? A bright future. And when you think about that, and when you look at yourself strategically and look at where the brand is, how am I going to be part of this bright future? And how am I going to communicate that? So when there's so much fear around and when there's so much anxiety about, how can my product, my service, my brand be part of the future that is going to be bright, bold, and good for everybody? Always be ready to re-examine your marketing mix to ensure cost effectiveness. I think that both Lisanne and Annette talked very, very eloquently about sort of costs and what's happening and things that are they're on the fluctuation. I'm always going to press to spend as much on marketing as you possibly can, but I would also say wisely so. There's great opportunity, particularly through social media and particularly through innovation and networking, and brands who are prepared to amplify what you're doing if they believe in it, to re-examine a marketing mix and be clever, not to be lazy. This is a time, again, I think that our energies are somewhat sucked on just managing schooling children from home, or or everybody being home, or doing Zoom for meetings. But if there's energy, if you can find the energy to really be innovative right now and be strategic and look at it as if it's almost as a startup, but with entrenched capability, it is could be a great, great time of positive energy and forward momentum. Be ready then to pivot your marketing spend to open up to these opportunities, and listen to your gut. In putting together this presentation for you all, we heard anecdotally, everybody had a story about companies that are doing wild and ambitious things to pivot right now and to make dramatic change, either because they have to, or because they want to, or that they're in a position to be able to, and to take some part of the load so that the greater good is seen. And I think that takes enormous courage, and it's a really interesting time. Brands are going to emerge, and also brands are going to re-emerge. Brands that we thought were dying off are going to re-emerge as true leaders of American commerce. So, but all of us can have whatever size the company is. I think that some of these steps will help as we just check them off, and we communicate with others also. I think that this format particularly is like asking questions of each other and sharing anecdotes and sharing advice. There's tremendous capability and experience within our friendship group, and asking advice is incredibly important. So maybe we'll ask Austin now to give us a little money advice. Always good.
Thank you, Tania. I appreciate it. And first, I want to say I want to be cognizant of everyone's time here. There is going to be Q&A at the end of this. So if you all want to stick around for that opportunity, I'm going to keep everything super high level and happy to connect after this presentation if anything resonates with you. So with that, I first want to say, congratulations everyone who's joining on this this conference. You're taking the first steps of controlling, during this this crisis. You're taking the opportunity to control what you can control. So congratulations on taking those first steps. The reason why I think it's important to focus on your personal financial goals and aligning them with your business goals is, everything that Lizanne, Annette, and Tania just spoke about it all translates into your personal finances. And I like to relate everything as from a business and personal perspective that I like to reference Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man because it was one of the most successful coin games in history, and everyone knows what the Pac-Man looks like. So the reason why I like using Pac-Man because entrepreneurs such as yourselves and business owners, typically 70 to 90% of business owners' wealth is tied up in their business. So you can look at the Pac-Man, like the yellow part is your business, and the mouth, the little the pizza slice of the mouth makes up the rest of your personal wealth. And just like the Pac-Man is constantly opening and closing, and moving around the map, just like your personal wealth and your business wealth, it's constantly fluctuating, throughout the entire time. Another reason why I like the Pac-Man reference is there's the 4 ghosts that all have different personalities that are trying to chase you and track you down. And I reference those ghosts to the different scenarios that are out there and crises, competitors and business cycles. And if you didn't know, each of those ghosts have different personalities, and they're all out there to get you. So it's really important to notice, what the business cycle is, what the tax law changes are, and now planning for pandemics. And the moves that you make within the Pac-Man game are opportunities to pivot your business and your personal financial goals as the ghosts are running around trying to get you. The second bullet point here is, and Lizanne touched on this, from a personal perspective, it's important to open up a communication with your personal banker and your wealth manager and your trusted advisors. Take this opportunity to not look at it like a crisis, but an opportunity to educate yourself. Establish a team of trusted advisors. Usually early founders, they think because they might not have a lot of wealth and they're early in their business that they don't need to work with outside professional advisors, but this is probably one of the best times to do that. So establish your team: a tax advisor, CPA, trust and estate attorney, M&A attorney, and insurance agent. Just as Lizanne references, something that saved her a ton of money. Because as time goes by, it's likely that you're going to have less time. Next point I want to make is to establish a financial plan. So just as you would go to your doctor for an annual checkup or a baseline, it's important to have your financial foundation and a starting point, because if you don't have a roadmap of where you're going, you might get lost. Typically, creating a financial plan is done with a wealth manager, but the basic steps of creating a financial plan is really easy, and I encourage you to take baby steps and not to overwhelm yourself, because no one really likes to have too much homework. So some of the things that you can focus on are develop a net worth statement, cash flow, income, expenses. Establish, as Lizanne said, a 6-month rainy day fund. And then last, just identify your needs, wants, and wishes, and the steps that it'll take to help you get there. Risk management. So I like to look at risk management as tying up all of the loose ends. And I like to focus on the 5 Ds. So death, divorce, disability, distress, and disagreement. Take this opportunity to review all of your business documents, your partnership agreement, your operating agreement, your buy-sell agreement. God forbid something happens to you, you want to know what's in place, well, for your business partners, yourself, and your family. Take this opportunity to review your personal documents, your trusts, wills, financial powers of attorney, healthcare directives, beneficiaries, and how all of your entities are owned. And with that, liability management. We're at historic lows right now with interest rates. So as Lizanne mentioned, there's a lot of borrowing capabilities out there. It's almost passed, but the 2 trillion relief pack, the CARES Act, it's 900 pages, and I don't think many people have read through it, but it goes to the House to pass, to hopefully pass on Friday. And there's a lot of different strategies there that might be able to help you, all of you business owners. And with that, Lizanne, that's very high level. And I've got the crowdfunding story if you want me to tell that really quickly, or we can just go straight to Q&A.
Well, yeah, maybe we'll go straight to Q&A if you don't mind, Austin, but that was really helpful. So I know we were running late. I just want all of you to know I'll stay on and answer as much Q&A as possible. This is our first kind of video conference, so we wanted to share so much. It's such a stressful time that I hope nuggets of a little bit of every category was helpful. Thursday, we're having another conference call, and that will be about video, running your company from home. And we have a couple coming on to talk about that. But what I'd like to do is open it up to Q&A. Just, Danielle will ask the questions, and again, I'm in no rush, and I don't think any of our speakers that are so dedicated to Pink Talented Angels are ready to rush. So let's take our time, and if there's anything we can do to help you through this. I hope we're able to do it. So Danielle, why don't we open it up to Q&A?
So we did have one question early on. Someone wanted to know what marketing investments are wise now. So Tania, if you want to take that one.
I'm sorry, just unmuting myself. Yeah. I would say two things. I think that this is such a great time of social media, but I would also say, unless you have really good strategy behind that and a very strong and clear voice, that you can throw your money at it and it's actually just throwing your money at it. So I'd say two things. I think, back to what I said, I think we have to look at our brand in the context of today. So I would say spend money on strategy right now and then disseminate. So I would say social media for sure is, and your analytics, so your testing, I would say in those three buckets. I don't know if anybody else wants to add on.
Yeah, I agree with that, Tania. I'd also just like to say that if you have a retail budget and you think that the retail execution is not going to be clear, you can stop that and take that budget and move it into direct to consumer, face to face, exactly what Tania is saying, social media. So I would really consider swapping a bucket to a bucket if available.
Did whoever asked the question want to sort of, did they get what they needed from that?
Hello, can you guys
Hi.
hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I asked that question. So I have a consumer packaged brand. It's a CBD sparkling water, but all of our marketing, we were going to go to Coachella, we were going to do street teams, we were going to do in-store sampling, and we're less than a year old, so we just got into stores, so we wanted to support our retailers, but now I'm thinking we pivot to social, but that was me, and you guys pretty much answered it, but that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I encourage you to have that day with yourself and big sheets of white paper and talk about what does your brand mean in the context of today and what we're going through, and what will your brand mean when we emerge out the other side. And that's not to say that everybody has to talk about COVID or what. I'm just saying literally kind of what does it mean? And it doesn't mean anything. We're the same brand, or it means we mean this to people we're gathering on, whatever. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I'd like just to kick in on that and say, if you have inventory that you've built already that's sitting on the floor, there could be opportunity through the different links of government, like there's going to be a lot of support. We're going to send it out to you all tonight from the government of what you can do for small business loans. But one of the things you could do is take the inventory and use it for some sort of philanthropic advertisement. So if you delivered a pallet into a homeless shelter or into a hospital because it's CBD, however you kind of think about the marketing, you can write that off, use the inventory, and be able to put it into a marketing budget because it becomes more of a marketing spend. Just food for thought. I think there's opportunity there. I think there's opportunity.
So we have a question here from Lynn. She's wondering how the fundraising landscape has changed for angel rounds and early stage VCs.
I think Austin, when you say change, do you mean today? I guess it's like in this environment, right?
Yeah, so like are people still investing? What's going on with angels and early stage VCs?
Yeah, actually, we talked about that a bit, didn't we, Austin? I'll kick in for a moment. So I think people.
And it looks like Renette actually from Countsy can comment on that too when you're done.
Who's that?
Renette from Countsy. She's on.
Let's have her do it. She's the pro.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all, and thank you so much, Lizanne. And the information provided was extremely helpful. So, from what I understand, on the VC and in speaking to about 30 of my portfolio companies who are in various rounds of stage funding. If those were in term sheet and in legal, where the round was closed, my understanding is those discussions are continuing, thankfully. If you had a term sheet that the rounds weren't necessarily closed, I'm hearing that those term sheets are getting pulled at the moment because of the uncertainty. For those that are getting ready to raise seed round, we are hearing primarily from NorCal, Northern California, that a lot of the valuations are being slashed. So at least, you know, this is a day-to-day thing. My background, I'm with Countsy. I'm a CFO for a handful of startup companies. Countsy has about 300 startup companies that we serve across Northern California and Southern California. It's a very difficult environment for seed rounds right now because valuations are being slashed, and certainly there are VC firms that have fundraised, that have money that are continuing to allocate, but there's also VCs that were fundraising from fund to funds that conversations have completely come to a halt. So at least the advice that we're hearing for now is for, you know, similar to what you guys have shared on this particular presentation, is for those of you who are starting to get some seed round, it's important that you kind of hunker down and reevaluate strategy, get your company assets together in terms of company deck and you know, teaser, financial model, use of funds, get the list of VCs that you want, and get ready to pursue that once things quote unquote normalize. But unless you're in that small percentage of companies that can really accelerate and help with the current environment, like online education, real-time delivery from brick and mortar stores. I've talked to a potential client that does medical appointments and prescription writing. Unless you fall into one of those right now, it's really about hunkering down. To your point, Lizanne, and I apologize, I came in late, but when you were talking about is cash is king, extending runway. I'm a CFO for startups, so extending runway, increasing capacity and cutting costs and making very difficult decisions. You really need to hunker down and wait for this and ride it out and wait to fundraise. I hope that's helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you. You're right? Where do you spend the money and how do you ask for the money? At the moment, I don't think anybody wants to give cash anywhere with where the market's at. So Jean put something on the chat that I think is really great, guys. So make sure.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Jean. All right, Danielle, any other questions?
That wasn't in the chat. Does anyone want to unmute themselves and ask a question?
We did miss one, Danielle. It came from Elaine. It was about Amazon.
Oh,
She's
I think
asking-
she's asking if anyone in the group is selling supplements on Amazon. So if you are, maybe you can private message her, or if you want to chime in.
Yeah, Amazon's tough, right? I guess it depends on what you're selling and what you're doing. Can the person talk right now that asks that?
Hi, Lizanne.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Elaine. I sell collagen supplements, and
Okay.
I've been selling direct to consumer on my own Shopify site. And so I'm just trying to research. Supplements is a huge category on Amazon, but I'm trying to wrap my head around, you know, what does the ad spend look like? Is it worthwhile? I have access to the inventory, so I can ship it, so I don't have to send it in to FBA. So that gives me an advantage because they've slowed down inbound traffic of product into Amazon. But I'm researching that. So I wondered if anybody in your community had experience.
Yeah, I think we have Sashi. Sashi, can you answer that?
Yes. Hey guys.
Hey there.
Hey. So we sell on Amazon. We have my company's Tea Drops, and we sell bagless dissolvable teas. And 60% of our revenue comes from D2C, our own website, and Amazon. So it's about 60% our website, 40% Amazon. So it's a pretty substantial part of our business. And I can tell you for ad spend, we typically spend that's spent back on Amazon advertising, sponsored search, and now they have some new advertising models that they're introducing that we're testing out. I would say that right now they are prioritizing only essential items. Luckily, tea for right now falls under that, but depending on what the supplement is, you might want to just clarify, if you're considered an essential, because that's also going to play a role in if they're even going to be accepting your item within the next 2 months.
Right. I have my inventory, so I can ship it myself. I can go to merchant fulfilled. So long as the postal service stays open, I'm able to ship product through merchant fulfilled.
But I think that has a lot to do with your margin too, right? So considering what your margin is for the advantage of the shipment and looking at where that's at. If you've already paid for your inventory and you need to roll it around, how do your payables and receivables look, right? It's about juggling those, I think, a bit when you think about the moment. In a crisis mode, what happens, as we all know, is that there's lag time. And lag time means that it takes longer to get through the process from the time you ship to the time it goes onto the retail shelf. And so that has to really be analyzed in the pipeline. And right now probably is so overwhelmed. I mean, Annette, what do you think?
Oh my gosh, I was on mute. I'm so sorry. So could you repeat the question, Lizanne? I had trouble hearing you. I apologize.
Is my Wi-Fi still going in and out? I'm sorry. No, the question is when you look at dealing with Amazon at the moment in a crisis situation, knowing that they're fulfilling eggs, bread, milk, right, basic tissue, basic necessities, panic items. When you have a product, do you ship and do business with them with a lag time because it's going to take longer to get into inventory or not? I think that's kind of the overview.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I almost feel like I need to take this a bit offline, but I would say that that if you have a direct to consumer through your own website, that's the preference right now. There is some reduction in products available at Amazon because of the price gouging that has occurred. I don't know that I believe that you talked about your supplement being a collagen product. Mm-hmm. So the collagen product may not fall under that, that category. I feel like the most important thing for you is to make sure that you have exposure. So when you go back to what Tania was saying about a really smart marketing spend, I need to be able to punch in collagen and have your company come up. So for me, spending the money to make sure that people actually see your product when they put in the word collagen, that's what's critical.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, thank you.
It looks like we have a question from Sarah.
Hi, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. This is Sarah from Golden Glow. So I have a brand with a line of turmeric superfood blends, and I have been direct to consumer until now. I am about to launch with CVS as part of their innovation initiative for their health hubs. And so I haven't had any retail experience, and I was wondering if anyone can share How can you, as a small brand, support your first retailer at that capacity in terms of marketing or any other thing that I may not be aware of?
May I jump in from the invoicing side, Lizanne?
Oh, and then I'm so all over the inventory side. Yes, go.
Please be careful. Please be mindful of, find out what their policy is on what they can charge you for a late delivery, not a full pallet, anything. When you enter retail, there are a group of retailers that I would say you need to have your head up, like Lizanne was saying earlier. Head up and be mindful of everything that they are telling you. Make sure that you read their contracts from start to finish and make sure you follow every one of their rules. You do not want to end up with chargebacks. I would tell you, I don't want to tell you the entity, but I would tell you that I've been in buildings where it cost us money to sell to an entity. We literally ended up in the negative because of the chargebacks. So please just make sure you read everything from start to finish. Go ahead, Lizanne.
Yeah, because I'm all over this. Like, this is the book when my NDA is up that I'm going to write. So I call them CNSs, cheaters and stealers. And I'm just going to be really raw right here. To go to retail in a crisis situation puts you at a negative. It won't be a positive. It will take longer to process your product once you ship it through distributor. First of all, pick up at manufacturer, distributor holds it, inventories it, retail pulls it. I assume that you're going through a distributor for CVS.
No, they came to me. I'm not. It's a unique situation. I've been working on it for a year. They came to me. I wasn't planning to go retail at the time. They did a pilot program at 12 stores and they wanted to pick up the product. So we've been working on that. It's a category of natural sort of supplements that they're doing a launch.
Right.
There are a bunch
But
of.
is it direct or are you paying?
Yes, it's direct. I've been working with them.
So
it's my full-time job now.
Right, but do you pay slotting fees?
No.
Oh, well then it's a risk that depends on the margin that you have. That's very unique. That's not what you're saying.
Yeah, that's why, when Annette was speaking, I guess I should just ask you guys this offline and explain the situation so I don't waste other people's time. It might not be relevant.
But you know what? We're here for you, Sarah. We'll jump on here tomorrow. Right now, Wheelers and the best shelf. That's what they want. And manage as many people get that.
You cut out a little, but I think what she's saying is just make sure that you watch your back on this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
but
you.
your situation does sound unique and very interesting.
Okay, I'll reach out offline. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Comments?
We have a question from Kara. She has a consumer packaged product and just hired a PR agency. She wants to know if it's a good investment right now.
Tania, do you want to tell her what I would say?
Yeah, I think PR agencies are really morphing, hopefully, into different things. I think sort of, print is challenged, TV advertising. PR has a particular way of working that really belongs to a time gone by, except when you find incredible people who network like crazy and who live in the current time and use the current tools. So the biggest answer to your question is it really depends on who you've hooked up with and whether you have their focus or they have your focus and you have their focus to work together. It's a really, really important relationship. It can be, honestly, a massive waste of time and money. But it also, if you if it is the right person that connects you with the right relationship, it can move you forward tremendously. So I'd need to know more about it, and I'd be very happy to take a call from you to talk about that. But I think there's such a variety of quality of PR. That's all I can say. I think Lisanne would say the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well said.
Again, if it's strategically spend your money wisely, and it can be a great spend. If you're in touch with somebody who can say, I can connect you to this and I can push it through, that's incredible. That's incredible. But it's very seldom the case.
Right. And Tania saying, PR is tough, right? It's the message and the mass of the message. At the moment, it's all about COVID-19. It's not about any products or any innovation or anything. And so think about that. So if you hired PR, ask them to come up with a crisis management PR plan with your product in line with that. And at least utilize the time that you've already signed on with them with a contract to be able to execute. But other than that, PR for me is an inconsistent message per Tania's message.
Elaine Morrison just sent a great link to everybody. Thanks, Elaine. Which is an interest. If you're a small brand, you can try doing PR yourself. Again, I think it's about relationships, and it's connection. PR is connection, and also amplifying your brand, communicating it and amplifying it. It's just picking the right tool for you, and whether it be a person or what have you. Yeah, good comments. Thank you.
Any other questions?
That's all that we have from the chat.
Okay. Well, if anybody would like.
Annette has a question.
Yep, there we go.
Yes, sorry. Really appreciated the branding discussion that we had in the presentation. I think, certainly helpful and helpful for my clients as well. The thing that I've heard from my clients, especially those that are advertisers, is that we're seeing a decrease in customer acquisition costs by 20 to 30%. And so some of my clients that are advertisers obviously are seeing advertisers pull out. So it is a good time for you to come in at a lower cost and do some testing and traction. Obviously, in the environment where quarantine is an advantage, I have clients that are online educators that do real-time deliveries for brick and mortar. I have one that's a telemed, where they can get online with a doctor and get some pharmaceutical prescriptions delivered home. These are the times where they've pushed so hard to get in and they weren't able to, and this makes sense. Unfortunately, for some of these, they don't quite have the platform to execute in the next couple weeks, but we are finding that some of these customer acquisition costs are lower. So just would like some thoughts on, for those companies, which I understand is a small percentage, that can take advantage of the fact that there's a lot of consumers consuming a ton of content at home. I talked to a founder today about pivoting on potentially selling, work from home care kits, spa kits. I don't know, you guys can't see my nails, but they look horrific. Health and beauty, we're all having to do these at home now. What are your thoughts on those that can and make it and have, some traction during this time for getting out there and doing some advertising, even on a small budget?
Tania, you want to take that, or you want me to? What are you thinking?
I think that actually, Renette, in your question, you had a lot of the answers. It seemed, you gave a lot of information. Great that prices acquisition coming down. And I think it's, again, I encourage back to the strategy of looking at today, where you can pull budget from and how you can accelerate. And the examples that you gave of incredibly relevant solutions. If you have a solution, if you have a business that provides a solution, even including an emotional solution to today, but it can be a very practical solution. The practical solutions are obviously first and foremost what we need, but there's an emotional solution also. All of those are great. I think, and back to the previous person, Elaine, who talked about PR, I think those things are also PR worthy. That's a good PR worthy spend. Just brand awareness, to Lizanne's point, you know, everything is about COVID. If it's just pitching brand awareness or, you know, brand familiarity, that's not a good, I don't think that's a good spend. But I think pushing out the thing, we have a solution that you need to hear about, that's something totally different. I'm not sure, I think I, like you, gave answers to my own questions and also asked others, but did you get the information that you were looking for? Good.
All right, so I think Danielle, no more questions, huh? Or does anybody?
That's it. And then I'm sure people will have questions in between, so definitely join us at the next one.
Okay.
The questions coming.
I have a question. If
Yeah.
someone can hear me.
Yes.
I would be interested. Is Austin still on?
Yes.
Okay. I'm interested in knowing some of the opportunities he's seeing to invest in the market with the values that we've seen lost, and when he thinks, when he's being told, or what his sort of folks are telling him is the right time to start reinvesting, getting back into the market, and taking advantage of some of the values that we can find there.
That's a very, very common question that we've been hearing right now. As far as investment recommendations, you know, due to my profession and needing to know more about your financial position and where you're at, and not knowing anything about you or your certain position, I think this would be best taken offline. But big picture, what we're telling our clients and what we're doing right now is wait. It's still too early to tell, you know, where this is all going as far as, you know, the stimulus package, the coronavirus outbreak. Because of the uncertainty, I still think that even though we've had a couple-day run-up, there's still weeks left of a lot of volatility. And until then, and until we have a more clear picture, it's going to be a bumpy road. So if you want specific advice tailored to your needs, we can take that conversation down the road. I'd love to give you my opinion.
Yeah, I can give you my opinion because I'm not under a UBS NDA.
Love it.
So I'm gonna give it to you, girl. Here's what I think. I think that we are on a 2-year downfall.
Oh,
I think that we need to compare this market to the Spanish flu in 1919 and 1920. I think that there is going to be an upbeat in the next couple months when we get control and we're out of this cold season. I think there's going to be an uptick and people are going to buy. And then I think there's going to be another crash. So what I would recommend, and this is just totally my personal opinion, is really to look at the patterns of the Spanish flu, because it's very similar to COVID-19.
okay. Very interesting.
Okay, so any other questions, or we'll does everybody have a cocktail, I hope? Am I the only one? Come on, girls. Oh, that's not the right one. How can I see everybody, Danielle? I can't.
My glass has been
they.
refilled.
On the top, on the right.
Well, you know what, ladies? To our health, right?
To your health.
To everybody's health.